Have you ever heard your name just out of nowhere and you're like, yo, wait, did my mom call me? You go to your mom, she's not the one who called you.
Yeah, all the time, bro, yeah.
Or your little sister, or your brother, or your older brother. So the scary way of looking at it, and the scary way that people think of it, is that it's actually demons trying to take your soul and trying to bring you into a different dimension. Or it could also be an evil entity in the house itself, is trying to fuck with you. But then there's another way of looking at it, or somebody in your family in dear need of help, and it's their soul literally reaching out to you in the spirit world.
Yo, I got the fucking chills, bro. What the that's actually like a really
Interesting way of seeing it.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that.
Like on some telepathic
yeah.
Bro. Some other people are also saying that it's your spirit guides and stuff like that. So there's many ways of seeing that, but I know a lot of people have experienced the whole hearing your name and you're just like, what the
I remember one time, right? So I was home alone. I think I was in a room playing video games or something like that. I forgot what it was. And then I hear the door open. Because I used to have bells on my door. But I heard the bells. And I heard, like, my mom usually ends up greeting my dog with, like, a baby voice. Like, hi, Rocky. Like stuff like that.
No way, you...
And I heard her say, hi, Rocky. But, like, no one was there.
Oh, that's scary.
When I heard it, I thought it was my mom. But after a while, I noticed that there was no more noise. So I went to the living room. Rocky was in his bed sleeping. And nobody was home.
That's scary, bro.
Like, I know I didn't hear my name, but I heard like my mom's voice say like, hi, Rocky.
That's weird, bro. Imagine it even scarier, bro. You, oh my gosh, hey, Rocky. And then instead of like...
There was a man named Igor Yefimov who was a Russian airport worker, and one day something awful happened. As Igor was preparing flight Air Astana 737 for takeoff by either loading luggage onto the plane or guiding its direction, he accidentally was standing too close to the plane's engine when it suddenly sucked him up and killed him instantly. His entrails and bits of his body were then shot all over the runway. The flight was then cancelled and all the passengers were onboarded and were put in local hotels for the night. Investigators were shocked by this gruesome accident and couldn't figure out how this happened. They believe Igor didn't follow the safety protocol and was standing too close to the engine when it sucked him up and killed him instantly. There's a CCTV video of the situation that went around on social media showing the whole situation unfolding. This is a terrible accident and sounds made up, but believe it or not, situations like this had happened before. Rest in peace to Igor, and what a terrible, terrible death.
The gunfire captured at the end of that clip took the life of 26-year-old Militia Jackson and her 1-year-old son, Isaac. On December 17, 2019, Militia and Isaac were just hanging out in their home. And that's when a group of masked men approached the back of the home. 3 men then opened fire into the back door of the home and killed Militia and Isaac. Sadly, Isaac was actually in his mother's arms when they were both shot and killed. Just a few days after the shooting, this man, Thomas Anthony Henderson, was announced as a suspect. At the time of the shooting, he was still a teenager. Thomas is currently still in prison for this crime, but there are 2 other men that were involved in the shooting that were never brought to justice. If you know anything about the murders of Militia or Isaac Jackson, please contact local authorities, because this story is absolutely horrific. These 2 were just hanging out at home. The gunmen were trying to target someone involved in a gang. But these 2 were not the intended targets, and in fact, the initial target wasn't even shot. Also, if you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast that my wife and I co-host, Murder in America, available on all streaming platforms.
Things you didn't know about the OJ case. After partnering with Netflix to watch the new comprehensive limited crime series called American Manhunt O.J. Simpson, I quickly realized that there was so much more to the case that I didn't know. For example, when Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman were brutally attacked on June 12, 1994 outside of her Brentwood home, her kids were inside the house sleeping, and one of the reasons their bodies would be found so soon is because of Nicole's dog. Her dog had gotten loose, covered in blood, and was roaming the neighborhood, and he ended up alerting the neighbors and leading them back to the crime scene. One of the most important facts in this case that most people don't know is that right after the murders, a witness saw OJ in his white Bronco speeding away from the scene and running a red light. The witness recalled looking into his eyes and recognizing him because she had recently seen a movie that he was in. I don't think I would have known that if I didn't watch this show. And what's absolutely heartbreaking that the show revealed is that Ron was only at Nicole's house that night to drop off her mom's glasses. Her mom had recently dined at the restaurant where Ron worked and had lost her glasses. And Ron, who was always willing to do anything for anyone, offered to drop them off to Nicole that fateful night. And sadly, he would lose his his life as a result. Another thing is that during the trial, even with so much evidence showing that OJ was allegedly responsible, it only took the jury less than 4 hours to return a not guilty verdict, which quite literally stopped the nation. This thrilling limited crime series does a great job at uncovering new revelations, and it's highly educational, even for those of us who thought we already knew everything about the case. The crime of the century, the hunt for the truth. Watch American Manhunt O.J. Simpson on January 29th, only on Netflix.
Three weeks after her 18th birthday, this girl was murdered by the last person anyone would expect. This case proves you really have no idea what's around the corner. Ashley Doolittle was born in Louisville, Colorado. She was kind, intelligent, and very beautiful. She was a talented horse rider and had aspirations to study agricultural business. She was crowned the Boulder County Fair and Rodeo's 2016 Lady in Waiting and would have been queen the following year. At just 18 years old, she really did have her whole life ahead of her. Now, Ashley's mum was a typical mum of a teenager. She would just always worry about what she was up to and whether she was safe or not. She would worry about her getting into a car accident or getting hurt, obviously riding horses. She could never have predicted, though, the absolutely horrific fate that awaited her daughter. Ashley and Tanner Flores had been dating for about a year. Now, the pair were only young, and with their hormones at that age and obviously school drama and things like that, the pair had kind of been up and down for a little bit. I feel like most teenagers can relate to a relationship like this when you're young and just things are kind of up in the air. You don't really know who you are yourself yet, let alone like what you actually want in a relationship. Both of them were kind of planning for the future, what they wanted for themselves and both together in the relationship. In 2016, the pair had been arguing more than usual, and Ashley came to the decision that they actually needed to split up. As difficult as this was for Ashley, she knew that this was for the best, but Tanner really wouldn't accept this. On the 9th of June 2016, Tanner asked Ashley if they could talk. The pair met at the Lon Hagler Reservoir to chat, but Ashley never made it home. Ashley's mum started to worry. As I said, she did regularly worry about her, so she went out to try and see if she could find her. Ashley had been due to be home that night at around 7:30, and she hadn't come back. Now, her mum kind of knew the local hangout spots. She knew this reservoir, so she actually went to see if Ashley was there, but all she found was Ashley's car. This rang alarm bells immediately, so her mum decided to alert authorities. She also decided to contact Tanner's family. Maybe they'd seen her or knew where she was or knew that the pair were together somewhere. Tanner's family, though, concerningly reported that they also hadn't been able to get hold of Tanner that day. They hadn't heard from him since 3:30 p.m. Terrifyingly, Tanner's dad told Ashley's mum that his gun was missing. Police started a huge search for the missing pair, and news kind of spread in the local area. Then a tip came into authorities that led them to Tanner's deceased granddad's house in Colburn. Now, it was over 300 miles away, and a neighbour had actually called police as they'd spotted a male who looked like Tanner pull into the driveway. Officers raced over there and were met with a grim scene. Tanner's truck was indeed parked there, and inside was covered in blood. Ashley's body was inside wrapped in blankets. She had been shot to death. It didn't take police long to track down Tanner and take him in for questioning. The 19-year-old eventually confessed to murdering the teenager, but he insisted it was not premeditated. His defense argued that this was a spur-of-the-moment thing during a heated discussion about the state of the relationship. However, he had clearly taken his dad's weapon from him in order to take it to the meetup with Ashley. When questioned, he stated, "She kind of glared at me and turned away, so I grabbed the gun and shot her. She started twitching and freaking out, so I shot her again. I thought it would be an instant thing." He was convicted of first-degree murder and kidnapping and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
After hitting a bad golf shot, this young teenager hit his club off a bench and it came back and struck him in the heart, killing him. It was a calm day in 1994 when 16-year-old Jeremy Breno joined friends for a casual game of golf in Gloversville, New York. The laughter on the course would soon be replaced by an unspeakable tragedy. Frustrated after a poor shot, Jeremy's emotions got the better of him. And in a moment of rage, he swung his 3-wood club at a nearby bench, venting his disappointment. But what happened next was something no one could have predicted. The force of the impact caused the club to snap violently. A jagged piece of the broken shaft flew back toward Jeremy, striking him directly in the chest. The sharp fragment pierced Jeremy's heart, and despite desperate attempts to save his life, the injuries were fatal. He bled out and died on the course, leaving his friends in shock and grief. This freak accident shocked the community and became a haunting reminder of how a moment of frustration can spiral into tragedy. Jeremy's story is now actually a chilling legend shared amongst golfers, a warning about anger and the unpredictable nature of fate. Even today, some say Jeremy's spirit lingers on that course, with a few people saying they saw him.
Back in the day, there was this show called Life with Grandpa, which was basically this Christian puppet show. It was meant for toddlers and children, and the characters in this show were humanoid-looking puppets. Grandpa, which was basically like the main host of the show, he was kind of made to seem like someone that you look up to. And then you have his wife, 3 children, Techi, Davida, and then you had Davidito.
Life with Grandpa, what could be more fun? Living where there's love for everyone.
It seems innocent right now.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. God bless you. Here we are once again. Let's all say hello to the children that are watching.
Hello. I love you. Hello.
Praise the Lord. That's a lot of love.
Before the show was even aired, there was this story called Life of Grandpa. It talks about one of the kids questioning why they have different skin colors even though they're related. And Grandpa starts telling them that your mom golfed other men and conceived you guys.
Is this showing us scene?
Yeah, so
What
it tells them.
And this is all supposed to be for kids?
The author of this and the creator of the show was a cult leader. He was a religious cult leader. The show, Life with Grandpa, is based around him and his family. And he basically believed that kids should be involved with their parents and adults' lives. I'm not going to talk about all the graphic stuff.
He was a pedophile.
Yes,
basically.
bro, yes.
They literally look like the characters on the show, bro.
Davidito, his real name was Ricky Rodriguez, and he endured the most abuse out of everybody since he was David's first son.
This is one of the worst pedophiles in world history, and today he's a free man. Meet Christopher Paul Neal, or Mr. Swirl. Christopher was born in Canada, and early on in his life he actually tried to become a priest, but he was denied due to a lack of qualifications. So instead of becoming a priest, Christopher chose to become another P professional, a pedophile. In the early 2000s, international investigators noticed that a number of CP or CSAM photos and videos were being released featuring this swirly face. In the videos, this man was seen violently abusing children. These videos were so violent and disturbing, featuring Mr. Swirl, that authorities' stomachs were turned. It was, according to investigators, some of the most disturbing stuff they had ever seen. Christopher, aka Mr. Swirl, was bold, and he uploaded over 200 images and videos and shared them across the internet. Videos once again depicting him abusing, if you know what I'm saying, children. But eventually, the authorities were able to unswirl his image. They found this image, they posted it online, and eventually he was identified. After being identified, Christopher fled to Thailand, but he was arrested there. Now, eventually, even though Christopher had been identified as one of the worst pedophiles on planet Earth, he was given only 5 years in a Thai jail. He was then released and sent back to Canada, where he was arrested upon coming home. However, after spending a couple days in jail in Canada, he was released. But less than a year later, he was rearrested in Canada after investigators checked in on him and found CP and CSAM on his phone and computer. So it's clear this guy couldn't be stopped. But what sentence did they give this hardcore pedophile who was found with CP and CSAM on his devices? Well, they sentenced him to 3 months. 3 months in prison with probation. After some lengthy court proceedings, he was eventually sentenced to 5 years in Canadian prison, but then for some reason they shortened that to only 15 months. And in March of 2017, Christopher was released back to the public, where he has been ever since. This is a man who victimized at least a dozen young boys on camera. A man who was completely unrepentant for what he had done. A man who was already convicted of crimes like this and then re-downloaded the same materials to his computers. And he only got a couple of years in prison for all of this, and like I said, he is a free man. So if you are in Canada, if you have relatives that live in Canada, tell them to watch out for this guy, because this is true. He is out there right now. It's shocking to me every time I do stories about this stuff. I do not understand why these pedophiles do not get more of a lengthy prison sentence. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. You can get a much higher sentence for a drug-related offense versus what this guy did which I think is just the scummiest and worst type of crime you can possibly commit.
This missing persons case uncovered a disturbing rabbit hole that led police to another victim's skull in a lake. Tracy Ocasio grew up in Ocoee in Florida. She was a massive animal lover and had some crazy pets like lizards and scorpions. She was super intelligent and wanted to eventually study radiology. In order to earn some extra money, she was working as a waitress at a local restaurant. She was actually very close with her parents despite being 27 years old. She regularly told them what she was up to and where she was. This is why it was so alarming when she vanished in May 2009. She'd actually recently split up from her fiancé. Although it's not entirely clear why the pair had split up, she moved back in with her parents and she was kind of enjoying just focusing on herself for a while. Now, one of her real hobbies in life was watching the basketball. I think she was kind of like what I'm like with football. She just loved watching basketball games. On the 26th of May, Tracy planned to watch the basketball with her dad, but unfortunately he actually ended up having to go into work, so she went to a bar alone. This was the Florida Tap Room Bar, and it was a place that she knew quite well actually. She would regularly go there on her own. It wasn't a particularly sketchy bar. It was full of sports fans, and it was typically a place where people could be safe going. Strangely though, Tracy never made it home from the bar, despite telling her parents that she was going to come straight back. As time went on and there was no sign of her, her mum got increasingly worried and reported her missing. Now, police immediately got their hands on CCTV footage from the last known place that Tracy was, which was the bar. Concerningly, the footage showed Tracy willingly left the bar with a man at around 1:30 a.m. Now, this man on CCTV could be identified as a bald man, a similar kind of age to Tracy, but nobody knew who he was. As officers started working on trying to identify this mystery man, they ended up making a shocking discovery. Tracy's car was discovered in a dark area on Franklin Street. It was strangely unlocked, it appeared abandoned, and it was also a kind of sketchy place where Tracy wouldn't have ordinarily gone on her own out of her own choice. Also, very interestingly, police dogs didn't even pick up Tracy's scent in her own car, so had somebody cleaned it? Finally, police identified mystery CCTV man. His name was James Hattaway. Police brought him in for questioning immediately and discovered that he had quite a dark criminal past. Disturbingly, he had previously been arrested for kidnapping a minor. He was currently out on bond. Now, he told them that he had met Tracy in that bar that night, they got talking and she'd offered to give him a lift home. He said she dropped him off at his house and then just went on her way, and he has no idea what happened next. When officers looked into his address though, it was just blocks away from where Tracy's car was found. Although they were very suspicious of James, they didn't actually have any concrete evidence to link him to her disappearance, so they had to let him go. They then looked into Tracy's phone records and found that her phone had switched off at 8:30 a.m. that morning, and it had last pinged in the area very close to where James's house was. Authorities then got a search warrant for his house, and although frustratingly they didn't find any evidence linking anything to Tracy, they did find a large amount of substances, so they arrested him for that. Then 2 witnesses came forward who actually knew James, and they said that on the night in question, Tracy actually went into James's house after dropping him off. They said James had even offered her some substances, but she'd declined these. So why had James lied? His story kept changing, and meanwhile loads of volunteers were out trying desperately to find Tracy. Unfortunately though, there was absolutely no sign of her. Then there was some disturbing information revealed. James had been involved in an attempted murder of a woman called Rachel Clark. Eerily, this was just the year prior and under very similar circumstances to the disappearance of Tracy. After Rachel had given James a lift home, he violently attacked her. Now, luckily, a passerby did intervene because this was a savage attack. There was no way she was going to survive this if she didn't have help. Now, despite Rachel obviously then filing a police report for an attempted murder, evidence was apparently lost and kind of nothing came of it. Time went on and Tracy's case also came to a standstill. Then on February the 22nd, 2011, police were searching a lake and found a human skull and a wallet. But this wasn't Tracy's. The ID found in the wallet actually belonged to a man named Onda Christopher George. It turned out that the person who knew both Tracy and Onda was James. Now, Onda had vanished in February 2009 after being seen with James. Yet again, Onda's car was found abandoned. So although there was nothing concrete to prove that James killed Onda or Tracy, police obviously did have evidence to try him for the attempted murder of Rachel. At the trial, Rachel took the stand and testified extremely bravely. She told the jury how James had viciously attacked her, and the pictures of her injuries were shown to the jury, and they're truly shocking. James's defense tried to claim that he was drunk and just didn't know what he was doing, which isn't a defense, by the way. You can't just get drunk and attack women and then get off scot-free. Thankfully, James was found guilty of this hideous crime at his trial, and he was sentenced to life. Tragically though, Tracy has never been found and her case remains technically unsolved. Onda's death is also unsolved to this day.
I can guarantee you that nothing will make you lose more sleep than when you look into how many people go missing after crashing their car, how they seemingly vanish into thin air, sometimes within just minutes. That's what happened to Jason Landry, and his story never fails to keep me up at night. Jason Landry was a 21-year-old student at Texas State University when he mysteriously disappeared on December 13th, 2020. What's scary to me is the fact that almost all of his movements that night were traced from his phone records, but he somehow vanished within 67 minutes in an area that he wasn't supposed to be in. That night, Jason left his apartment in San Marcos, Texas to go back home for Christmas. He left his apartment at 10:55 p.m., and his plan was to drive to his hometown of Missouri City, Texas, where all of his family members were waiting for him for the holidays. It should have only been about a 2.5-hour drive, but Jason never showed up, and what happened after this has never been explained. Instead, his dad was woken up at 2 in the morning by a phone call, and on the other end was a highway patrol officer who told him that his son's car was just found wrecked and abandoned along a gravel road in Luling, Texas. This immediately stood out as odd to Jason's dad because Luling was in the complete opposite direction from where he was supposed to be heading. A volunteer firefighter had reportedly found Jason's car 31 minutes after midnight, so not long after he left his apartment that night. It was abandoned near the 2700 block of Salt Flat Road, and just from looking at the pictures, it seems pretty desolate, and it's definitely pretty far off from the highway where he was supposed to be. It looked as if Jason had been in a single car crash, and from what authorities can piece together, it looked like he possibly overcorrected on the gravel road and then spun out of control, eventually hitting a few trees and a barbed wire fence. The front passenger door was locked, the keys were still in the ignition, and the headlights were on. But then the officer tells him that Jason is nowhere to be found, which is especially concerning because he had very obviously been in a car wreck in an area that he didn't know. So his dad immediately drove to the crash site and was stunned to find nobody there. Not a single police officer was looking for his son, but his dad walked into an incredibly eerie scene. About 900 feet from where his wrecked car was found were Jason's clothes, strewn across the desolate gravel road. I'm talking about all of the clothes he was wearing at the time of the crash. So his shirt, shorts, socks, underwear, and even his shoes. Some of his clothes had small drops of blood on them, and his watch was also found on the road. What's absolutely crazy to me though is the fact that authorities didn't process the scene as a crime. So after Jason's car was found, they didn't search it. Instead, they had it towed to an impound lot. But Jason's dad knew that the clothes surrounding the crash site did belong to Jason because he liked to wear really bright colored socks, and the socks that were laying in the road were bright yellow SpongeBob socks. The temperature was near freezing the night Jason crashed his car, and now with him being missing and not getting a hold of his family, his dad knew something was horribly wrong, and because the crash site wasn't listed as a crime scene, nothing had been taken in as evidence. So Jason's dad had to actually collect all of his son's items as evidence and bring them into the police station himself. This is when he said, "Hey, you know my son is missing, why isn't anyone out looking for him?" And this is kind of what got the ball rolling, because at first it really seemed like the police couldn't be bothered. So then Jason's dad was taken to his car, and when he looked inside, he found Jason's phone stuck between the driver's seat and the center console. Eventually, a formal search did happen, and this is when more of Jason's belongings were found. About 900 feet in the opposite direction of where his clothes were found, police found Jason's backpack, which contained his laptop, gaming equipment, and a small amount of WEED. Also found in this area was a plastic bag with some of Jason's toiletries in it, as well as his tumbler with his pet fish in it. But sadly, at this point, they were all dead. It was at this point that the gravity of the situation kind of set in for authorities, and a massive search for Jason was launched. They searched in the nearby woods and farmlands and in every abandoned house and shed for miles. They brought in tracking dogs, horses, and drones, and they searched for months, but absolutely no trace of Jason was ever found. It was like Jason vanished into thin air. So then authorities started combing through his phone records to see what they could find. And what's crazy is that almost all of his movements the night he went missing were recorded because he used the Waze app. So the timeline of his last movements were thankfully captured, but it really only brings more questions. Phone records show Jason leaving his apartment in San Marcos at 10:55 p.m. He then begins driving on Highway 80, and at 11:05 p.m. he goes under I-35 in San Marcos and continues south. At 11:21 p.m. he enters Staretown, Texas, and just a few minutes later he enters the city of Luling. Continuing on Highway 80, he goes through the intersection of Hackberry Street, and this is where Highway 80 becomes Austin Street. At this point, Jason stops using the Waze app and opens Snapchat, which shows him continuing on Austin Street to the intersection with Magnolia Avenue. He goes through the intersection and continues on Austin Street, but after this, his digital footprint just stops. Police believe that he ends up driving on Spruce Street, which eventually turns into Salt Flat Road, where his car would be found wrecked and abandoned. What happened after this? Nobody knows. Jason's phone was still on and still had a signal when he crashed his car, but for some reason it didn't capture any of his very last moments. From the time his digital footprint stops to when his car was discovered wrecked was 67 minutes. And to this day, the biggest mystery is what happened in those 67 minutes. We know he crashed his car somehow, but police believe that no one else was involved in the crash, and they say they found no evidence that he was kidnapped or harmed in any way. The Caldwell County Sheriff's Office stated that there's no evidence a crime even happened. No blood was found inside of Jason's car, and the drops of blood found on his clothes were small enough to suggest that he didn't suffer a serious injury in the crash. Authorities have reviewed hundreds of hours of video footage from all over Luling from the minute he crashed his car to weeks after the fact, but nothing was ever found. Jason didn't appear in any of the footage. Police found no evidence to suggest that he was planning to meet someone in Luling, so the question remains on why he was there in the first place, on a specific remote gravel road, and so far off the highway. With no evidence of what happened to Jason, his case soon fell cold. Then, Texas Search and Rescue started working on the case to try and find Jason. They used AI and nearly a year's worth of drone images to search 6 points of interest. These were 6 places where computers/technology thought Jason could be out there in the field near where he crashed his car that night. During their search, they did find a lot of bones, but none of them turned out to be human, and again, absolutely no trace of Jason was found. Then in 2022, Jason's case would gain momentum again when a man who eerily resembled him was found unconscious in New York, over 1,700 miles away. This gave his family some hope that Jason was finally found, but unfortunately, the man was not Jason. He was a resident of Yonkers in New York who just so happened to also be missing, and it's sad because he really did look so much like Jason. Authorities have done forensic testing, have issued a bunch of search warrants, and have taken numerous witness testimonies, but no trace of Jason has ever been found, and there are no leads or any evidence in this case. Additionally, multiple private investigators have also worked on this case, but no suspects or any persons of interest have been found. Police believe that he's either somewhere still out there near Salt Flat Road or someone else was involved, even though they can't find any evidence of that. They urge anyone who lives in the area who might have any cameras on private property to still send it in. Or if you live on private property out there that has never been searched, please consider letting authorities search it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There are so many cases like this where people, especially young men, crash their car and then mysteriously disappear. It really does need to be studied because it is terrifying. It's now been 4 years, and whatever happened that night causing Jason to crash his car and then disappear remains a mystery. There's a $20,000 reward for information leading to his whereabouts. These are some of his characteristics, and if you have any information, please contact the number on the screen.
However, coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up," might have known the story of real-life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair, no one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
The ice cream truck obviously has those little popsicles with the different characters.
Yeah.
Which characters do you remember?
Spider-Man, SpongeBob, Dora.
Do you remember like the Boots popsicle?
I don't remember a Boots popsicle. It's only because I've never like got the Boots popsicle. I usually just get the SpongeBob one or the Spider-Man one.
That's basically the whole Mandela effect. So apparently there was never any Boots popsicle ever. But I remember there being a Boots popsicle, bro.
Really?
Yeah, because I remember it being right next to the Dora one.
I mean, that would make sense. Not gonna lie. Pull it up. Let me see how it looks. What the?
You can't tell me that shit wasn't there, bro. But apparently that shit never existed, bro.
Was there ever a Sonic one?
Yeah, there was.
Right?
There's a Sonic one.
Was there a Hulk? I think I remember seeing Hulk before.
There's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Powerpuff Girls.
The FBI is on the case of a missing Texas man they say bragged about stealing thousands of dollars from a Mexican cartel and then disappeared just 2 hours later. Federal court documents are revealing that several men kidnapped the victim from a house in Laredo.
So this is a story straight out of some sort of a movie. In March of 2023, a man named Eric Tadio Ramirez told somebody on the phone at his house that just hours earlier he had stolen $50,000 from a Mexican cartel. This is the neighborhood that he lived in. The cartel he stole from was the Cartel del Noreste, a powerful criminal organization. And if you know anything about cartels, you don't mess with these guys. Well, just a few minutes after midnight on March 24th, 2023, a pickup pulled up to Eric's house. Men with masks and guns got out, they dragged him into the pickup and abducted him. The armed men then crossed back into Mexico with their hostage in the car, and to this day, nobody knows what happened to him. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America, available now on all streaming platforms.
After a couple went missing in Tenerife, dismembered body parts have been found. Jeanette Gaston and her husband, Mark Francis, were originally from Belgium. They moved to Tenerife in search of a better life. As many older couples do, they wanted to get away to a place where they could enjoy their time together. However, tragedy struck on the 24th of April when they were reported missing. Recently, though, there was a discovery, and not a positive one. 66-year-old Janet's body washed up on the coast of Araco. Alarmingly, her death was no accident. She was found dismembered with a bag over her head. Authorities determined that her death was a violent one. Now, as of yet, Janet's husband Mark remains missing. It has recently been reported that 3 males have been arrested over the discovery. 2 of the men were arrested in Belgium and the other was arrested in Tenerife. Strangely, a local court has agreed for any progress on the case to remain secret. This is the shocking moment that a chained-up woman was finally rescued by police. It was the 16th of August 2023. A usually quiet neighborhood in Louisville was about to transform into the set of a real-life horror film. Neighbors could hear screaming coming from one of the properties nearby. They obviously became concerned at this and called police. Emergency services raced to the scene, never expecting to find what they did. At around 7 p.m, they arrived at the neighborhood of Park Hill to a 2-story house. They could see and hear a female screaming through one of the windows. Now, the police really struggled to access the property, but were eventually able to force entry. They discovered that horrifically the woman had been chained to the floor. 37-year-old Jonna Wilson had a chain round her neck with a padlock on it. She had been secured to the ground by screws. Police used an axe to break through the chain and set the woman free. She was crying with relief as they finally released her. She told officers that the male who had captured her and held her captive was Moises May. She explained that the pair had a 1-year-old daughter together and had recently broke up. He was held on a $100,000 bail, and as of now, the judge has denied his appeals to have the bond reduced.
I actually have a story that involves a Nahual. It's people who can transform into their totem animal, whether it be a jaguar,
Oh,
a
okay.
bear, a wolf. They don't fully transform into it, but they get the same characteristics as that animal. Obviously, a lot of people believe different things. Some people act like guides, good in a way, and other obviously use it for evil. They come out in the night because the energy shifts at night.
The moon is fucking probably beaming.
It's like the witch's hour, basically. Right?
Yeah.
My mom, she told me that almost every single night or every other night, there will always be this big black dog that would basically be outside just kind of patrolling, walking back and forth, trying to wait till somebody opens the door. Like I said, this one night, my mom's aunt, she woke up to some rustling outside of the house. Keep in mind, this is like in the Pueblo and shit.
Yeah, so it's dark as fuck out there.
Dark as fuck, and she realizes that it's right outside of the door. So she obviously decides to look out the window because she's not about to open it in the middle of the night. And she sees a big black dog just walking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it was known that a Nahual was part of that like town and shit, and that like he would kidnap women and take them to a field, kill them in the spear.
Fuck.
Yeah, bro. Like a lot of people are gonna compare this to, again, Skinwalkers. Kind of similar, but completely different in a way. Let me know if you guys ever experienced or heard about anything like this, because I know there's a lot of people who have.
I saw a lot of people saying how like they know people who are
They celebrated their first wedding anniversary, and then he murdered her. Andrea and Sean Yarborough seemed like a lovely, normal couple with 4 children. They lived in Florida, and Andrea worked as a financial advisor. Sean was 46 and was working as a fireman. They'd been married for a year and had just celebrated their first wedding anniversary. However, it would be the last one they would ever celebrate. On the 13th of June, Andrea's mum had picked up her granddaughter from the pair's home. The child told her nan that her parents were inside the house still sleeping. Andrea's mum didn't think much of this at first until she failed to be able to get hold of the couple. She didn't hear from them from the entire day, and Sean also failed to turn up at work. She tried texting and calling and got no response. That's when she decided to call police and ask them to do a welfare check. Officers arrived at the property at around 9:20 p.m. They went into the house through the front door, which was strangely unlocked. They found a shell casing and blood on the floor. Blood was coming out of a closed bathroom door, and when they went into the bathroom, to their horror, they found 2 bodies. Both Sean and Andrea were lying on the floor deceased. They determined that Andrea had been killed first and the manner of death was homicide. They determined that Sean had died from self-unaliving. Both had passed away from gunshot wounds.
These are things humans should never hear, part 1. What I'm about to show you is a simulation of what happened to Alaskan Flight 261 following a catastrophic loss of pitch control, killing all 88 people on board. This is real audio footage of the plane going down between the pilots and air traffic control. The plane went inverted, meaning it was flying upside down, and just listen to how calm the pilots are.
I don't know if you ever heard about this, but Peggy the Cursed Doll.
Nah, I actually haven't.
So there's at least over 80 counts of people reporting that after looking at the pictures, the eyes of the doll, looking videos of the doll, they report headaches, nausea. Apparently, this is true because it happened to me.
What the fuck?
I looked into the eyes, and then out of nowhere, I started feeling like I wanted to throw up. I don't know if it's placebo effect. I don't know what it was, bro, but I started feeling mad weird. Also, there were reports of people getting nosebleeds after watching this.
Yo, why are we watching this video then?
And also, there was a British woman who got a heart attack after watching this video.
I'm not gonna look. I'm not gonna look, bro.
Well, you have to look.
I'm not gonna look, bro.
Just look down. Look down on my phone.
I'm not gonna look, bro. Fuck that. Fuck that, bro. I'm not gonna look, bro. I don't give a fuck. Y'all the viewers can see this shit if y'all want, bro. I'm not looking, bro.
The origin of like the original owner is not really known, or like who owned it first, but all I do know was there was this woman back in 2015 where she went to a garage sale and then she came across this doll and automatically she was drawn to the doll. So she bought it back home, and literally that same night she started getting really, really bad nightmares. It wasn't just a one-time thing, it was a consistent thing where she would have the same nightmare over and over, and it would be really, really horrible nightmares to the point where she would wake up sweating so bad and where she couldn't really breathe. She tried to get the doll and the house blessed by 2 different priests from 2 different churches.
Didn't work.
Police received a very unsettling phone call and then the caller hung up. What they found at the house was horrifying. On the morning of the 19th of June 2024, police received an unnerving phone call. The female caller told police that there was an emergency. She then stated sorry before hanging up the phone. She had given them an address in Voluntown in Connecticut, so dispatchers immediately dispatched some staff over to the area to see what on earth was going on. Horrifically, they found a man deceased in the driveway of the property. He was on the floor with visible injuries on his body. Police were actually unable to gain access to inside of the house. Now they knew that there had been a woman's voice on the call earlier, so they needed to get inside. They ended up sending drones through one of the windows. That's when they made another alarming discovery. A woman was also lying on the floor unresponsive. When they were finally able to access inside of the home, she was pronounced dead. Now, after speaking with neighbours, the police were able to determine the fact that the pair appeared to have been living together. The actual relationship between the two, though, is at this point unknown. Officers have no idea what the pair's cause of death was, or if there was somebody else potentially involved. We still also don't know whether the female caller that the police got the call from was the deceased female in the property. Investigators now have the tough task of figuring out what on earth went on.
This one is called Los Clones.
The clones?
Yeah, basically Los Clones was a Mexican television program that aired on TV Azteca. It's without a doubt one of the most strangest, mysterious forms of lost media. There's like so little information known about it, and only because the show was only aired for like about 2 weeks to like a month before it got completely cut. Certain people were saying how maybe it's because of how the dolls that were used in the show looked.
Were creepy?
And kids that have been traumatized with the show and stuff. So basically the show had these puppets parodying famous people at that time. It could be artists, Mexican actors, politicians, and what made it creepy was that the puppets had these exaggerated facial features. For anybody who's scared of dolls, it will give you like a creepy feeling.
I have that feeling, like I hate the way dolls look. Like anything that looks human and shit and is not, bro. Especially dolls with the creepy eyes.
But let me know, guys, if you guys remember this show. Some people remember it like a fever dream, or people just having nightmares about it because of how scary and creepy the dolls look.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to see, bro.
Bueno, tal vez te hice la nariz un
I
poco
can't watch this, bro.
pero si no te
Why?
gusta, podrás cepillarla como le hicieron a tu papito.
El lápiz labial invisible y el padrino de dientes con energía solar.
¿Quieres hacer el amor esta noche? Respuesta equivocada, cariño.
That shit just made me feel mad weird, bro.
Yeah, bro. People say it makes you feel uncomfortable, bro.
OD, like, you know that fight or flight feeling?
Yeah.
That shit's activated right now. Like, I feel weird.
Credit to Senna for discovering this, because I've never knew about this shit.
This girl was raised by stray dogs, and what happened to her is absolutely shocking. Have you ever wondered how you would have turned out if you weren't raised the way that you were? I remember seeing this case on TV at a really young age, and me and my sister being so disturbed by it. Oksana Malaya was born in 1983 in Ukraine. She was a completely normal child when she was born. However, unfortunately for her, she would not be lucky enough to have a normal childhood. When she was 3 years old, her dad's alcoholism reportedly spiraled out of control. It's reported that her parents would lock her out of the house with stray dogs. She was extremely neglected by those who should have been taking care of her. As a result, when she was found by authorities at the age of 7, she was completely unrecognizable. She couldn't walk properly and crawled on all fours. She barked at people and lacked even basic social skills. She mimicked the dogs that she was surrounded with and even groomed herself like them and slept on the floor alongside them. When she was finally discovered by social services, they obviously removed her from where she was living. She was taken from her parents' custody. She was placed in foster care, but obviously so much damage had been done in her early, most impressionable years. She was put through therapy, and staff tried to undo all of the harm that was caused to her at such a young age. Now, she actually ended up doing quite well despite all the years of neglect. She learned to speak fluently, but it's believed that she still struggles with learning to some degree. It's reported that she's now in her 40s and has a job working on a farm. She wishes to be treated like a normal person and says that one of her wishes is to eventually find her biological mother.
However, coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up," might have known the story of real-life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair, no one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
Real La Mata Bellas. Her name was Miriam Yuki Gaona Padilla. She was a woman who posed as a plastic surgeon in Guadalajara, Mexico.
Oh, no, she's botched.
A little reason why she was like that is crazy as well. So back in the day, she was like a stripper, and she ended up getting involved with like dangerous people, including her boyfriend, who was a drug trafficker. And one day, they ended up getting doused with like gasoline and basically lit on fire. her boyfriend ended up dying, but she just got like really bad burns. After that, she just disappeared. So a couple years later, she ends up coming back. Obviously, you could tell she got plastic surgery done. After that, she ended up opening up her own medical office, providing people services of plastic surgery for like a really good price, a cheap price, in a natural way, no surgery done, and fast results. She would say that she would inject collagen into the patients. She got so known and so popular to the point where she would go on tours to different countries. People from Europe would come over to Mexico to get work done by her. United States people come over to Mexico to get work done by her. So it's estimated over 100,000 patients that she worked on. When the patients started reporting some problems, some of them started forming some lumps. She started gaslighting them, saying how, oh, it's normal, it's part of the procedure, I went through the same thing. But eventually it just got worse and worse and worse, to the point where people's skin would turn black, their skin would peel off. They ended up going to the doctors and they ended up telling them that they got car oil injected into them, industrial oil, vegetable oil, anything that you wouldn't really want inside your body. I actually have some pictures of the patients as well.
Yo, I don't want to see this.
I'm sorry, bro.
Imagine spending Christmas morning with your mum, not knowing she'd been murdered and was dead the entire time. It was 2011 in stunning Anaheim, California. One family was having a seemingly ordinary Christmas morning. The children were all unwrapping presents, excited for the festivities. The family had actually just welcomed a newborn baby just 7 weeks prior. However, on closer inspection, this Christmas was just about the most disturbing Christmas you could have imagined. The children of William Wallace and Zarzell Preston felt like something was wrong. Their 26-year-old mum was sat on the sofa with sunglasses on, which was odd. She was also a lot more quiet and lifeless than usual. The children asked their dad, 39-year-old William, what was wrong with mum. He chillingly replied, she got drunk and ruined Christmas. In reality, their mum was on the sofa, deceased. William had propped her up on the sofa and put sunglasses on her face to try and cover up the fact that he'd actually beaten her to death the evening prior. Tragically, 26-year-old Zarzell had suffered at the hands of her partner for a long time. When William finally decided to call 911, he lied to officers and said that she had injured herself. He tried to say that she had been alive when he propped her on the sofa. However, this story did not add up, and the autopsy proved that she died much earlier than he made out. In reality, he had attacked the innocent mother as the pair had arrived home from a Christmas Eve party at a neighbour's house. Thankfully, in 2021, he was found guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. The 3 children are now looked after by Zarzell's mum.
I also remember seeing another video from 2017 in Jalisco of a Jesus Christ statue moving in the middle of La Misa. It's alright. It's quick, it's in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, I don't know how people want to take that kind of like a miracle in a way.
Yeah.
Or other people, you know, say it's like supernatural, creepy thing. It is paranormal, though.
Of course, yeah.
At the end of the day, bro, because if you see a statue or anything that's not human move, it gives you a little bit like of a...
Catches you off guard.
But what it reminded me of was a movie.
Oh, okay.
It's a very old movie. It's a vintage movie that I watched as a kid. It's called Marcelino Pan y Vino.
I've never seen that.
So what the movie is basic about is this little boy, he's an orphan. His name is Marcelino, right? He gets taken into this monastery with all the Catholic and religious monks. And obviously he's a kid, bro. So very mischievous. And one day he sneaks into the attic of the monastery.
Okay.
And he sees a giant crucifix of Jesus. And he starts talking to the statue. And eventually, over time of the movie, the statue starts talking back to him.
What the fuck?
Having regular conversation with him, saying like you shouldn't be bad and stuff. At the end of the movie,
sometimes true for stranger than fiction. The case of Richard Trenton Chase is a story which even the most depraved horror writer would struggle to create. Over the course of 4 weeks spanning across 1977 and 1978, Richard Chase took the lives of 6 innocent victims in Sacramento, California. His murders gradually progressed in violence, beginning with drive-by shootings and culminating in acts of cannibalism.
Within seconds of this video, 7 people would be dead. And many people regard this as one of the worst freak accidents ever. And whatever you do, don't look up the video. This tragic event happened in 2021 in Bolivia at a university. The incident occurred in the financial sciences part of the building. And I could be wrong, but I believe this is 4 stories high. It happened around 8 a.m. and all the students you see packed here were actually protesting. And as you can see, there is a lot of people here, and all of a sudden, the railing bends and then completely falls off, resulting in a bunch of people just falling, and you can see this all on video. Right when the railing broke, one girl got insanely lucky. As she was about to fall, two people grabbed her by the ankles and caught her from falling. She was centimeters away from death and she survived, but sadly, 7 other people could not say the same thing. As the railing broke, 7 people tragically fell to their death. And in the video, you can see them falling and screaming and then just splatting on the ground. It's extremely disturbing and I obviously cannot show it here on TikTok. 3 or 4 of the students were pronounced dead at the scene and the others were pronounced dead later on at the hospital. I haven't seen any updates since this, and I don't know if there's been any legal issues or lawsuits. All we know is that 7 people died in a horrific accident that should have never have happened. If you do decide to go watch this video, I do have to warn you, it is pretty disturbing. But nonetheless, this is just such a sad situation because all of these students were extremely young with their lives ahead of them, and suddenly their lives were taken from them in a disturbing accident. May they all rest in peace, and this is just awful. These are the most disturbing things ever live streamed. In 2016, 28-year-old wingsuit pilot named Armin Schmeider decided to take his fans along on a base jump from a mountaintop in Switzerland. In his live stream right here, you can see him excitedly getting his suit and equipment ready. And he even says, "Today you fly with me." But he could have never have known that he was about to provide a first-hand POV of falling 5,000 feet to his death. After he concluded getting everything ready, he ominously waved goodbye to the camera. He stuffed it in his suit while still filming, and then he jumped from the mountaintop. For a while, you only hear the rustling sound of the wind and the suit, but then the followers were greeted with the sound that they never expected. Armin gained superstar status when he made a risky but successful jump that garnered over 13 million views on social media. Soon, he had a pretty big following that loved tuning into his adrenaline-inducing content. But they would have never have guessed that one of his jumps would be unsuccessful. The sound of the wind was then interrupted by a blood-curdling scream, and then you hear the sound of impact. The video fell silent with the exception of the eerie sounds of bells ringing, until you hear perhaps one of the most disturbing sounds ever. It sounded like deep labor groans, and in reality, what we were hearing was likely agonal breathing, which is a reflex response to the brain not getting enough oxygen. Typically during cardiac arrest, it's not a signal of suffering, and people are often unconscious when it occurs. But nonetheless, it's still extremely upsetting to hear. I wouldn't recommend watching the live stream or listening to the audio because it really is unsettling. You literally witness a man smiling and having the time of his life, and then minutes later, it all ends so quickly. Rest in peace to Armin Schmeider, and this death is just truly awful.
Video that was surfacing throughout the internet and shit, and it was about a jinn who had interrupted a conversation on live TV.
Oh, okay.
So live show where people call in and basically just ask questions and stuff, but this specific show is a Muslim show.
So it's not related to no spiritual stuff or no like scary stuff.
It's mainly focused on Islam, Muslim beliefs and stuff, and people call in to speak to the sheikh.
Okay.
I don't really know how to pronounce it, and his name is Abu Muhammad. A woman calls. At first it's a regular like conversation and shit, but then stuff starts getting weird.
Allah's name on the left leg. Also
on the edge right now.
Just keep watching.
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا. Give her the power to continue her speech, Ya Allah.
The visa, one front of my pillow,
oh
one
my
to
God,
carry with
bro.
me.
Who created you and why? Huh?
She ended up saying
Baal? B-A-A-L, the fucking demon?
What they're saying that was a jinn, which it's not a demon, it's not an angel or anything like that. It's just another spirit that could choose whether it wants to be evil or whether it wants to do good.
This Brazilian YouTuber with 2 million subscribers took his own life before he could be exposed as the pedophile that he was. This is PC Sequeira. He was known for his appearances on Brazilian TV networks, his comic book coloring, and his interesting content. But right before Christmas last year, he posted this chilling clip. In this post, he wishes his followers a lonely Merry Christmas, and a few days later, he would be dead. PC was found by his girlfriend at the time. He was 37 years old, and he had taken his own life in his apartment in Brazil. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, in 2020, the authorities began looking into PC after child abuse images were found on his phone. And according to the authorities investigating this, he had shared these images out to other pedophiles. Now, interestingly, when you look up this guy, there are a number of articles that come up, but this one from the Daily Mail says he posted a heartbreaking Christmas message. And it makes no mention of the fact that he was under investigation for sharing CSAM or CP videos. Now, I don't know what happened with this investigation after he took his own life. I don't know if they followed up on the leads, but I definitely think the fact that he took his own life is related to the unfolding pedophile investigation that he was embroiled in. Eerily enough, his TikTok account is still up and running. It has been verified. TikTok refuses to verify me, probably because I talk about this stuff. And I don't know if we'll ever know the true story about exactly what they found on his phone, exactly how many images and videos, because I don't really know how investigations like this go in a country like Brazil. I recently spent a full month investigating and exposing a CP ring in Michigan, and this information is explosive, it's dangerous, and if you're interested in this sort of thing and want to help me raise awareness about it, you should go watch this video that I just posted on my YouTube. Here's my channel. If you're lost, you can just go to my channel and click on the most recent videos. But yeah, this is important stuff that we need to talk about because it's so prevalent. And if we don't raise awareness, this will continue to happen time and time again.
Imagine waking up to be told you stabbed your boyfriend to death and you have absolutely no idea. Bryn Specker was a 27-year-old woman from California. It was 2 a.m. on Memorial Day 2018. She'd been dating 28-year-old Chad O'Meara for a couple of weeks. The pair had been hanging out a lot since initially meeting at a dog park. Chad was 26 and worked as an accountant and an amateur boxer. On the night in question, the couple were at his apartment in Thousand Oaks. They decided to smoke some substances together and had no idea that the decision would change their lives forever. Bryn is said to have gone into what is called substance-induced psychosis. She ended up doing just about the most horrific thing you could imagine. She grabbed a knife and stabbed Chad in a frenzied attack. She ended up stabbing him over 100 times. She was reportedly screaming hysterically while stabbing him and herself in the neck. She then, and trigger warning here for animals, she then stabbed her pet dog, an Alaskan Husky. Emergency services raced to the scene and there was blood absolutely everywhere. Bryn was still screaming and officers had to hit her with a baton and also taser her in order to get the knife out of her hand and subdue her. Her boyfriend Chad was pronounced dead at the scene. Bryn was rushed to hospital where she underwent life-saving surgery. When she regained consciousness, she had no idea what had happened. She was told she had killed her own boyfriend and also stabbed her dog. Thankfully, her dog did survive the attack. In court, Bryn claimed that Chad had actually been aggressive and intimidating towards her during the time that they'd known each other. She stated that he had pressured her into smoking the substances that night. In a controversial conclusion to the case, she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. She was given 2 years probation and 100 hours community service.
Moving dolls caught on camera.
Why, bro?
I know you're scared of dolls, and these ones are pretty creepy. So it's a video of a little girl.
Like a home video type?
Yes, it's an old video that was taken like years ago. She's just talking to the camera, doing like a show and tell of a kitchen set that she received. She also mentions that it's for her YouTube channel, which her parents explained that on her YouTube channel, she just does toy reviews and pretend playtime videos. And in the background, there's a doll. It slowly starts raising its hand.
See, now, I feel like I might believe this a little bit more.
She turns around, but like she doesn't really like see anything. She doesn't think anything too much of it. She continues to review her toy, and then she looks in the camera like on her phone, I guess,
and she sees it move again,
and then she looks back at it and it falls, and then she fucking dips, bro.
Dos cuchillos amarillos iguales. Después las tacitas. Tengo esta tacita rosita y esta tacita como egipcia. Huevo, ¿sí?
That is not staged, bro, because the shit started falling, bro. She was out of that bitch, the way she reacted and stuff, and
I feel like it's hard for a little kid to act. I feel like you can tell whenever they're acting, or like when they're being forced to do something. She was enjoying herself.
This woman shot her husband because she caught him watching porn.
This is Patricia Hill, and she was a deeply religious person. She taught at a Sunday school for a local church and was married to Frank Hill for 17 years. But a huge issue that the couple faced was Frank's use of pornography. Even before their wedding, Patricia found videotapes and magazines at Frank's place. And for Patricia, pornography was unacceptable. Frank promised to stay away from them, but she said that she caught him with pornography several times after that. And in June 2018, Patricia said that she noticed a subscription for a porn channel on their cable bill, which she immediately canceled. When she came across the same charge the next month, she confronted Frank about the pornography. It was at this point that things took a turn. Patricia later told the police that she asked Frank to leave, but he didn't. She stated that she kicked the table, knocking some of his things down before coming back to the house, where she went to the shed and grabbed a .22 caliber handgun and shot Frank in the leg and another time in the head. Patricia then called 911, admitting to shooting and killing her husband. Now, what I'm about to show you is the 911 call made by Patricia Hill after shooting and killing her husband.
Yes, I need a police and ambulance out to... My husband's been shot. Who shot him, ma'am? I did. Were y'all arguing or something, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Let me transfer you to the ambulance service, okay? Is he breathing? I don't know. Are you still there? Yes. Hold on. I'm transferring you to the ambulance service. Do you still have a gun, ma'am? No. Ambulance service. 911 transfer. Yes. I need an ambulance and a police.